The police are supposed to protect and serve, but here are 8 cases where officers of the law abused the authority they were entrusted with, sometimes to a fatal degree. Today's video was requested by BlackDog2626. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 8. Malvinia Jimenez. On the 24th of February 2014, Malvinia Jimenez, a Venezuelan seamstress, was going home from her workshop when she encountered members of the Venezuelan National Guard policing a demonstration. Jimenez decided to take pictures of the event. Josneidy Nayari Castillo Mendoza, a female National Guard, threw the 35-year-old to the ground, kicked her, mounted her, and began hitting her with her helmet. After the attack, Ms. Jimenez was moved to a government facility where she reportedly endured further abuse. She was accused of resisting arrest, property damage, assaulting the officers, and inciting disobedience. Mendoza was never prosecuted for the beating. Following the incident, Jimenez became an activist and a member of the Committee of Victims Against Repression in Venezuela. She began speaking out against the government at protests and demonstrations. Number 7. Robert Davis. A little over a month after Hurricane Katrina, Robert Davis, a retired schoolteacher from New Orleans, was detained and savagely beaten by the police on the premise of public intoxication. The incident took place on the night of October 9, 2005. An Associated Press producer, who was also reportedly assaulted that night, recorded the beating. Davis put up no resistance as the officers repeatedly punched him in the head in violation of the New Orleans Police Department's policy. The beating took place in the French Quarter, while Davis, who stated that he hadn't had a drink in 25 years, was out buying cigarettes. 67-year-old Davis said he had no idea why the punches were thrown, as he'd only asked the mounted officer about the curfew in the city. The fact that Davis was African American and the officers were white heightened the controversy. Some of the officers were either suspended or fired, but the charges against them were largely dropped. Number 6. Wei Wenhua. 41-year-old Wei Wenhua was beaten to death by municipal law enforcement officers known as Chen Guan while filming a protest in the Chinese province of Hebei. The incident took place on the 7th of January 2008. The conflict Wei attempted to record involved a garbage dump in the Chinese village of Wanba, Tiamen, which was used by the Chinese government. The village's governing body feared the dump posed a health threat for locals, according to the Chinese media. Wei was attacked by 30 Chen Guan as he attempted to film the protesting villagers. For an estimated 5 minutes, Wei was reportedly beaten inside his car and later pronounced dead at a local hospital. Public outrage followed his death, and the commander of the municipal force was fired from his position in the wake of the incident. 4 people were detained and over 100 government personnel were questioned regarding the incident. Number 5. Mido Macia. On the 26th of February 2013, Emidio Hazias Mido Macia, a taxi driver and a Mozambican immigrant, was killed while being detained by the South African Police Service. A witness taped Macia being dragged by a police vehicle in a South African township called Davidton. Macia had reportedly parked illegally, causing a traffic jam. According to officers at the scene, he also resisted arrest. The man was handcuffed to the back of a police van and dragged almost 1,600 feet. He died in police custody from internal bleeding and head injuries. Subsequent reports claimed that he'd also been beaten inside the police station. The following day, 8 policemen were arrested on suspicion of murder, and all were convicted on the 25th of August 2015. Number 4. Rodney King. Perhaps the best-known case of police brutality is that of Rodney Glenn King. He became internationally known after a tape was released of him being beaten by officers of the Los Angeles Police Department on the 3rd of March 1991. The incident occurred after a high-speed car chase between King and the police. A witness, George Holliday, recorded most of the beating from his balcony and then sent the footage to his local news station. The tape showed several of the officers striking King repeatedly with their batons, while others stood by. Public concern was raised regarding the police treatment of minorities in the US after parts of the footage were aired internationally. 4 officers were charged with use of excessive force and assault with a deadly weapon. All 4 officers were acquitted. The 1992 LA riots started within hours of the verdict as outrage within the African American community erupted. The riots lasted for 6 days, during which 55 people were killed and 2,000 were injured. The California National Guard was deployed to re-establish control by the governor. On the 16th of April 1993, 2 of the officers involved in the beating of Rodney King were found guilty in a federal district court of violating his civil rights and were sent to prison. Number 3. Suresh Bhai Patel. On the 6th of February 2015, 57-year-old Suresh Bhai Patel was injured while being detained by 3 police officers. The Indian national was visiting his son, Chirag, who worked as an engineer and lived in a residential neighborhood in Madison, Alabama. As Mr. Patel walked through the neighborhood, a resident called the police after allegedly observing suspicious behavior from somebody described as a skinny black man wearing a toboggan. Officer Eric Parker arrived on the scene and asked Mr. Patel for identification. The man didn't speak English and repeatedly told the policeman that he was from India. What happened next was captured by 2 police dashboard cameras. 90 seconds into the interaction, Officer Parker slammed Mr. Patel to the ground. According to the victim's family, the officer also twisted his arm. Mr. Patel was taken to the hospital for spinal swelling and underwent surgery for his vertebrae and had to undergo treatment at a rehabilitation center where he had to learn how to walk again. The injury left him partially paralyzed. The Indian government was said to be disturbed by the incident, and it was taken very seriously. Officer Parker was charged with 3rd-degree assault, and later the Federal Bureau of Investigation charged him with deprivation of rights under the law, but Parker was acquitted of all charges in 2016 and ultimately allowed to return to work at Madison Police Department. Number 2. Abner Louima. In August 1997, Abner Louima, a Haitian man, was assaulted, brutalized, and forcibly sodomized by officers of the New York City Police Department. Following his arrest at a Brooklyn nightclub, officers were called to the club but got into an altercation with the patrons and bystanders. Officer Justin Volpe was allegedly sucker punched and identified Louima as the assailant. Louima was arrested for resisting arrest, obstructing government administration, and disorderly conduct. Volpe would later admit that he had mistakenly accused Louima. On the way to the station, Volpe and other officers beat 30-year-old Abner with their nightsticks, fists, and handheld radios. Upon arriving at the station, Louima was strip-searched and thrown in a holding cell where the beating continued. Then, Volpe kicked him in the testicles. While Louima's hands were handcuffed behind his back, Volpe grabbed and squeezed his testicles before sodomizing him with a broomstick. As he held the bloody excrement-stained instrument, Volpe reportedly walked around the station and bragged to another police officer that he took down a man. The broom handle was then jammed into Louima's mouth, severely damaging his teeth. The following day, Louima was taken to the emergency room, and the escorting officers told the medical staff that his injuries were the result of abnormal homosexual activities. Louima had sustained massive internal damage to his colon and bladder, and the medical staff soon realized that what the officers told them wasn't true. They alerted Louima's family and the department's Internal Affairs Bureau. The incident caused public outcry in New York City as well as on a national level, and on the 27th of August 1997, approximately 7,000 people marched in a protest that was named Day of Outrage Against Police Brutality and Harassment. Volpe was ultimately sentenced to 30 years in prison without the possibility of parole, and Louima was awarded the largest police brutality settlement in New York City history, $8.75 million. Number 1. Dejaria Becton. On the 5th of June 2015, 2 police officers answered a disturbance call involving a pool party that was taking place in a gated Texas community. The venue for the party was Craig Ranch in McKinney, an upper-middle-class neighborhood. According to police, the incident involved approximately 100 teenagers, the majority of whom were African-American, who allegedly jumped the fence at the private pool party after a local radio station had promoted the event through social media. During the incident, Corporal Eric Casebolt, a McKinney police officer, was recorded violently restraining 15-year-old Dejaria Becton. According to the police, the unarmed girl, who was wearing a swimsuit, had refused to leave the party, but video shows the police officer grabbing the 15-year-old by the back of her head and throwing her to the ground while screaming at her. As 2 teenagers tried to intervene, Casebolt drew his handgun and aimed it at them. At this point, fellow officers intervened to calm him down. Casebolt can be seen yelling and cursing at partygoers while pinning the girl down. The video went viral with millions of views. On the 8th of June, 800 people marched from the school to the swimming pool where the incident took place, demanding the firing of Casebolt. The police department was also accused of being racially biased. After serving the McKinney Police Department for 10 years, Casebolt was placed on administrative leave and later resigned. In January 2017, Ms. Beckton and her legal guardian filed a civil suit against Casebolt, the McKinney Police Department, and the city of McKinney, seeking damages of $5 million. The suit was primarily based on the violation of constitutional rights, as Beckton was held without probable cause and because of the use of excessive force.
It was crazy to me about how straightforward and open he was about his murders, because behind his warm smile lurked a cold, heartless assassin who treated killing like a business. Leading up to the shoot, he was saying things like, "Hey brother, you're gonna love the stuff I'm about to show you. I'm gonna welcome you to Medellin with all the love and affection in the world. By the end of this shoot, we'll be like brothers."